Hello and welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy interview guidance program. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss a very important topic that is very important for your interview point of view, because it is a very relevant topic for the interview and even for the mains examination as well. It is continuously in news, the global nuclear order, which is discussed multiple times, and it is very important topic right from the Cold War times, right? So therefore, in this context, changing geopolitical order and the changing nature of international politics, we will understand what is the present status of global nuclear order. Now, why global nuclear order is in news in recent times is because it has created during the Cold War times. We all know that the Cold War is actually a phase of conflict, a phase of a frequent tension between two power blocks, the Western power block led by US and the Eastern power block led by the USSR. Okay, so therefore it is actually created during the Cold War times, the global nuclear order. Now, why the global nuclear order has been created during the Cold War times? Because both USSR and USA had possessed a huge amount of nuclear warheads at that time. So in order to prevent a nuclear war and in order to protect the planet from the destruction which caused by the nuclear weapons, so both of these countries, along with other like-minded countries, have thought of a nuclear order, a global nuclear order. So therefore, this global nuclear order has held reasonably well, but it has been facing numerous pressures in recent times, as I have already told you, because of the changing nature of international politics, changing geopolitics. It has been facing a lot of pressure and a lot of issues. So because of this reason, the global nuclear order is in news. When I say the global nuclear order has been facing a lot of pressure, it means that now Russia has been started reimagining itself as a key power in the region, and in fact the resurgence of China and several other countries like Iran trying to possess nuclear weapons. So all these factors have been making the global nuclear order come under a lot of pressure. So in this context, it is very important for us to understand the global nuclear order in a detailed manner. Now, what is global nuclear order? Before discussing all this, we have to understand what is global nuclear order in a detailed manner. Now, if you understand the historical background of the global nuclear order, so as I have already told you, it was created during the Cold War times. So as it has created during the shadow or under the shadow of Cold War. So with the US and USSR were leading the Western and the socialist blocs respectively. I hope you already know what does the socialist bloc actually mean. So socialist bloc is led by Russia. Okay, so the former USSR. So this global nuclear order was primarily led by the Western and the socialist blocs during the Cold War times. So when you read NCERT books, you may have come across 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. So this is also one of the landmark events in the history particularly during the Cold War times. So where the two nuclear powered nations, USSR and US, have come together, and this may escalate into a situation that two superpowers would came to the extent or came to the brink of a nuclear war. So after the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, both these superpowers, so both these power blocks, US and USSR, they have actually understood two political realities. Okay, so two political realities, and what are those realities? We will understand those realities as well. So understanding of those two political realities by these two power blocks led to the creation of global nuclear order. Now, what are those two political realities? So the first political reality which both these power blocks have understood is there's a need of multilateral mechanisms, where multilateral mechanisms ensure stakeholders participation. Different stakeholders will participate, and that will ultimately help in preventing or minimizing the existing tensions, and it will not escalate into a full-scale nuclear war. So this is what the first reality that was understood by these two powers. And the second most important political reality that was understood by these countries, the nuclear weapons are very, very dangerous. Okay, so these nuclear weapons are dangerous, so therefore the spread should be curbed at any cost, right? So even if it is between two countries, the consequences would be larger across the globe. So therefore, in this context, the nuclear weapons are very dangerous for this world. And even in recent times, there were attempts that new countries have started they have making attempts to acquire nuclear weapons. So in this context, every country has to understand that nuclear weapons are very dangerous, and therefore there should be a concerted effort to contain the spread of these nuclear weapons. However, in order to contain the spread of nuclear weapons, there should be a proper pathway. Okay, so the increasing nuclear weapons is called as proliferation. So therefore there is a need to control the proliferation of nuclear weapons. So in fact, US and USSR had tried to create a proper mechanism or an architecture at the global level. So this is what is called as negotiations that took place in Geneva in 1965. So this is a treaty. That treaty is aimed at preventing or curbing the spread of these nuclear weapons. So in the year 1968 also, okay, so in the year 1968 also, so there was a very important treaty, that is I hope you all have been aware of this nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So this nuclear non-proliferation treaty began with less than 60 parties, but today it is widely described as the cornerstone of global nuclear order, because around 191 countries have been adhering to the provisions of nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So even though there was a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, countries like India were not part of this NPT. So why India objected to this NPT? Because it is discriminatory in nature. It is discriminatory in nature. Why it is discriminatory in nature? Actually, nuclear non-proliferation treaty says that these 5 nuclear weapon states, the countries which actually possess nuclear weapons before this treaty, are allowed to possess nuclear weapons. Okay, so however, they should not undergo nuclear proliferation. They should not make any attempts to acquire new nuclear weapons. However, they are allowed to possess nuclear weapons. Okay, so they are allowed to possess nuclear weapons. So NPT provisions also makes it very, very clear that the new countries should not possess any nuclear weapons. So because of this reason, countries like India, primarily India objected to this NPT and said that it is discriminatory in nature. So after that, there is also another treaty, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty also. So India is also not part of this Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, says it is also discriminatory and it is biased towards the developed countries or countries which already possess nuclear weapons. So because of this reason, India is not a member of NPT or CTBT. Okay, so what is India's standpoint in this context? So India had chosen not to sign the NPT, and in 1974 India in fact stunned the world by conducting its first nuclear test, first underground peaceful nuclear explosive. This is Smiling Buddha. Okay, Smiling Buddha. So this was the first underground peaceful explosive that India had conducted, and that shook the entire world. Okay, so after that, if you understand the global nuclear order by the year 2022, so here a list of countries which have signed the NPT, those countries which are not signed NPT. Now if you look at this first one, so there are a number of countries, nuclear weapon states outside the treaty on non-proliferation of nuclear weapon states. For example, countries like India, Pakistan, North Korea. Okay, so these countries have not signed the NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So on the other hand, there are other countries also, so they are nuclear weapon state, but they are recognized by Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So as of now, there are only five countries which are being recognized by NPT as nuclear weapon states. So what are those five countries? We all know that US, Russia, China. Okay, so Russia, China, UK, and France. So these are the five countries so that were recognized as nuclear weapon state countries by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Okay, so there are certain states which are nuclear weapon host states. So even though they originally don't possess nuclear weapons, but these countries actually host the nuclear weapons. So after that, there are different states under soon to be a nuclear umbrella. Nuclear umbrella means, for example, Japan is under nuclear umbrella of US. Okay, so there are also different states in a similar fashion. So after that, state part of the nuclear weapon free zone. So there are several countries which declare themselves that they will not use nuclear weapons, and they will never host the nuclear weapons by any other country. So this clearly tells us that it is a nuclear weapon free zone, and it is a signatory of the Treaty of the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now if you carefully understand, Israel has never officially confirmed or denied the existence of the nuclear weapons. So even though it is very often said that Israel has also possessed nuclear weapons, however, it is assumed that Israel developed a nuclear weapon capability in the year 1960s itself. Okay, so but Israel has not officially confirmed that they had nuclear weapons. Okay, so this is where the dilemma comes here about the number of nuclear weapon states across the world. Even though there are a number of countries like Iran, they have been enriching the fuel uranium to make the nuclear bomb. So in this context, the global nuclear order has how the global nuclear order has performed so far. As we have discussed, it has originated during the Cold War times. So how the global nuclear order has performed? So first and foremost, we have to understand one thing is that is nuclear taboo. So what does this nuclear taboo actually mean? So this nuclear taboo means that, okay, so after US had used nuclear weapons against Japan, USA had dropped nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the year 1945 or 44. So after that, it has created a lot of negative sentiment among the public about the nuclear weapons. Within the society, a lot of negativity has been developed about the nuclear weapons. So in turn, this has prevented the governments to use nuclear weapons again. Okay, so this is what is called as nuclear taboo. So it has also been propagated by different countries and different scholars. Okay, so it has been held since 1945. Okay, so this nuclear taboo after US's attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So nuclear taboo believes that the humanity has survived for 75 years of this nuclear age without blowing up itself. It is primarily because of the nuclear taboo. And after that, we have to talk about the successful non-proliferation attempts as well. So because now more than 20 countries were predicted to possess nuclear weapons by the year 1970s. Okay, so a number of countries will acquire nuclear weapons by the year 1970s, but 5 countries had nuclear weapons in the year 1968. So those countries we already know, so they were also recognized by Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, right? So but even though 20 countries had been predicted to possess nuclear weapons, only 4 countries have since gone nuclear What are those countries? India, Israel, North Korea, and Pakistan. So therefore we can assume that this is a partial success for the global nuclear order, because earlier we predicted that around 20 countries will possess nuclear weapons by the year 2070, but only 4 countries had procured nuclear weapons by that time. So even later also. And after that we have to talk about the strategic stability aspect also. Now when countries have the second strike capability, generally the already countries which already possess nuclear weapons will not use nuclear weapons against another state which already had nuclear weapons, or it already had the second strike capability. So this is where it ensures the international peace as well, because in the international order there are different countries who who are under the security umbrella, who are under the nuclear umbrella. For example, we need to talk about the security alliance called NATO. So what was the principle? The principle was attack on one is considered as attack on all. Okay, so so therefore in this context they are under the security umbrella of the superpowers. So therefore the strategic stability is actually based on the second strike capability, and this has been guaranteed by the enormous arsenal that US and Russia had built up over a period of last few years, or last few decades. So this has eliminated any incentive to strike first, ensuring a deterrence stability. So now if I say this very very clearly, now imagine a country, imagine US and China, right? So imagine US and China. So if US used nuclear weapons against China, then China will also have the massive second strike capability. Okay, so it can use nuclear weapons to attack US simultaneously. So therefore this is a mutually assured destruction if they use nuclear weapons, mutually assured nuclear destruction. So therefore this finally eliminated the incentive to strike at first, ensuring the deterrence stability. Okay, so it will not benefit US even if US uses nuclear weapons against China at first instance, because China will also attack US with nuclear weapons because they have developed a massive nuclear arsenal. Okay, so this is also said that it ensured the peace and stability at the international scale. So after that we need to talk about the attempts of denuclearization. For example, as part of the former Soviet Union, countries like Belarus, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan were denuclearized. Okay, so in fact they had hosted the nuclear weapons of the former Soviet Union. Okay, so they also possessed some nuclear weapon capabilities, but they had declared that they will be denuclearized. So after that we need to talk about the extension of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty as well. Now in 1995, the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, so that was originally concluded for 25 years, now extended for the indefinite period of time. So this is in the benefit of the global peace and global stability, because it will ensure that new countries will not acquire any nuclear weapons in the future. So therefore that will ensure global peace and global stability. We should also talk about the role of superpowers like USA, how they have played a huge role and a very active role in ensuring that there will be no proliferation of nuclear weapons. Now if you look at the attempts of US during 1977 and 1988, so US actively subverted Taiwan's nuclear weapons program. In fact, Taiwan had also planned to acquire nuclear weapons, but US had subverted Taiwan's nuclear weapons program. So as it stepped up a normalization ties with the US. Okay, so ties with the China, because US had played a very important role in normalizing ties between Taiwan and China, even though now the ties between Taiwan and China were coming at a very low point. So after that we need to talk about the other attempts where US had made. During the 1970s, South Korea had also considered a nuclear program, a nuclear weapon program. So, but at that point of time, France was reluctant to supply a reprocessing plant to the South Korea under US pressure. Okay, so this also a success, this can also be called as a success of the global nuclear order, and this is also an example of the active role of US in ensuring non-proliferation of the nuclear weapons. So however, it is not free from the limitations. There are certain limitations in this respect. Now what are those limitations? So first and foremost, even though there is a proper mechanism in the Cold War times, but the global nuclear order did not control arms race between US and USSR, or nuclear weapons race between these two countries during the Cold War times. So second most important limitation is that if you understand the nuclear arsenal which US and USSR possess, so their arsenal grew from 28,000 bombs in 1962 to over 65,000 bombs in the early 1980s. Okay, so these are the limitations, and in this context we have to understand how the changing geopolitics will impact the global nuclear order. Okay, so first and foremost we have to talk about the multipolar world order, right? So now it is said that we are living in a multipolar world order where multiple centers of power had been developing. For example, India is considered as a center of power in South Asia, China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, South Africa. All these countries are considered as multiple centers of power. So today nuclear world is no longer a bipolar world. What does bipolar world mean? So this had seen during the Cold War times, where are there two powers only, that is US plus USSR. Okay, so multiple, there are only two centers of power, and now US has also has also been facing assertive China, not just assertive China, but even resurgent Russia, and even the Iran has been asserting itself. So therefore US has been facing a lot of pressure from different regions across the world. Okay, so China is actually determined to regain its influence regionally and globally. So this is the first and foremost challenge. And after that, the emergence of China. Okay, so China's nuclear arsenal continues to grow, and China may become the third most nuclear arsenal, a country which possesses third most highest nuclear arsenal, joining the US and Russia. After that, we have to talk about the withdrawal from the treaties. For example, USA and USSR or Russia were part of different treaties, so that will ensure that the situation will not escalate further. Firstly, when we talk about USA, it had already withdrawn from anti-ballistic missile treaty in 2002, and from the intermediate range nuclear forces treaty in the year 2019. So even Russia had also withdrawn from several other treaties. For example, it had withdrawn from the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, so in the year 2023, because it has been imposing certain restrictions and limitations on Russia. So apart from that, the only surviving or only remaining treaty, that is New START treaty, and this treaty will lapse by 2026. So these are the major challenges and the problems that these countries have been facing with respect to the global nuclear order, or the entire global nuclear order has been facing. So apart from that, at the global level, there are different countries who change their stance towards the nuclear weapons, or towards the security as well, because they are looking they are more insecure, and they are looking to procure nuclear weapons, or they are wanted to be under the nuclear umbrella of different countries. So this is particularly because of the domestic compulsions of those countries, and this domestic compulsions have been turning the US inwards. Now US is no longer able to provide the security umbrella or the nuclear umbrella to different countries, so it has been looking inwards rather than outwards. So therefore it has been led to raising many questions in the minds of allies in the Middle East and East Asia, Southeast Asia, about its extended deterrence capabilities, especially in East Asia, for example South Korea, Japan, so in all those countries. Now if you look at even Japan has also changed its stance, or it has a clear shift which is visible with respect to Japan, because it has been making efforts to double its defense spending over the next 5 years. Okay, so therefore it has determined, or it has committed to further increase its defense expenditure. Now in this context, what should be the way ahead, what should be the way forward? So there are two conditions to gain the legitimacy of the global nuclear order. Now what are those two conditions to gain the legitimacy? So the first most important condition is to achieve convergence among the major powers. Okay, so there are different powers, for example Russia and USA, China. So there's a need for convergence among major powers, so that would prevent a conflict, escalation of tensions between all these countries, and it will not bring world at the brink of another nuclear war or another world war. So after that, we have to talk about the successful presentation of the outcomes that we had achieved by these mechanisms, bilateral mechanisms, multilateral mechanisms, treaties, to the global public good, or it is a global public good. So far whatever has been achieved through these mechanisms and treaties should be publicized and presented as a global public good to the rest of the world. So that will also develop the kind of a nuclear taboo. Okay, so nuclear taboo, and the world will also move away from the nuclear weapons, and that is very important for the global peace and collective security of the mankind. Okay, so that's all about the global nuclear order. Now if you have any doubts regarding the global nuclear order, please comment those doubts in the comment section, and if you really like our work, please like our video, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much.